Da, 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 da.
Welcome to Star
Didn't
Trek, Trek.
before.
So, we did, yes. Welcome to Star Trek, our ongoing journey through the cosmos, the entirety of Star Trek, and we're now on to a most fortuitous moment. We are here to celebrate the birth of an excellent Enterprise episode, or is it? This is Unexpected from Star Trek Enterprise's first season, featuring a pregnant, complete gentleman, Trip Tucker. Would you like to know a fun? Well, not a fun fact.
Yeah, always.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to start with the usual. This was written by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga, so this is a typical, oh no, no one wants to write for Star Trek anymore, guess we'll do it, episode. Which is why it has
what I love?
problematic material in
the
it.
modern era, showrunners writing the episodes is usually a good sign. Like every time you see Henry Alonso Myers or Michelle Paradise on, it's a good sign. Here, you're like,
it's going to be some problematic shit, and it kind of is a little bit. Not as bad as some episodes, but directed by Mike Vajar, who also did Empok Nor, Year of Hell, Latent Image, Shadows of Pajem, and Unimatrix Zero. So I would like you
These are some extremely good episodes.
They're very good episodes. He's got a good pedigree. Can you, right, here's a cryptic question for you. Can you tell me who are the two recurring Ds in this episode?
The Klingons.
No.
Recurring Ds.
Two recurring Ds.
D's nuts?
I like it, but no. That's what Trip was given. You're close. You pointed out when we did the watch along. You pointed them both out.
Degra and Dexa.
You got it. Yeah, this features
okay.
Randy Oglesby, who plays Degra as the Xindi counselor in the future episode, and Julianne Christie, who also played Neelix's Amur Dexa in the end of.
You know, this is probably the best trivia you've ever done on these.
Really
Trek
good,
treks.
isn't it?
I
I'm
like
glad.
that.
It's amazing what Memory Alpha will
good.
provide. Thank you. Anyway, guys, Dan Auto stars. What did you think of this episode?
So, I feel like this is the first episode of Enterprise that I actually really, really liked. Like, I was like, no, I like this. Not, this has potential. Not, I can see the show becoming something. I was like, no, this is a good way to spend 45 minutes. And I'm pretty sure it was the same kind of impression when I watched it through with my boyfriend Brody and Marie, my other friend who we took through Star Trek. We were just having a great time with this episode. And watching this back through, a lot of these jokes still land. And we kept on going on in the watch along about like how this is kind of problematic, and it is.
It's
but I think it's well sort of known.
It's like a problematic theme,
Yeah.
but it's handled in a jovial way that doesn't feel offensive.
It's not handled with care, but the thing is that like you guys know that I'm more than happy to call out an episode for problematic content, but like the way that it's handled here, it's so without menace and so without like. Like, there is an obvious consent issue that needs to be addressed here, and the episode just completely sidesteps it entirely. But the fact that it is so without malice means that I can't bring myself to be angry about it. Like, if I met someone who was like, I thought that episode was absolutely disgusting, the lack of, respect for Trip's bodily autonomy, meant I can't watch it again, I'd be like, totally valid. But then I talk to people who are like, no, that episode's really funny. I'm like, yeah, I also see that as well. It's a really weird episode.
It's all like they even mentioned that his favorite food is catfish, and yeah, he kind of gets catfished. He kind of gets sort of lured into a sense of like, oh, this is a fun game.
By the way,
he even
do you think that was on purpose? That line?
Probably. I don't know.
Like, was that a big term back in the aughts?
No, I don't think so. I think they're just playing up his roots. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right.
Damn.
Like, this whole kind of like at the end she's no, not Sorella. Why do I say Sorella? That's Martok's wife. Forget her name now. Anyway,
Alen.
Yeah, that's why. Thank you.
Yes.
Even says it's
Lillian.
like, oh, I didn't know this could happen, but you knew it might. Like there was obviously a kind of like, don't play in.
You could have just said, hey, in our culture, this can lead to this. So I feel like I should inform you that there may be a chance of one of us becoming pregnant. It's like, cool. And he'd be like, well, now I'm informed. Instead, she's like, yeah, it's just a game.
And on the other side, Trip is just like, I was being a complete gentleman. Like, you weren't really, because you were sort of like being fed electric ice cubes, and you kind of you didn't go, hey. In our culture, you don't sit on my lap suggestively and feed me ice cubes and lead me into your personal holodeck and like.
He was essentially infirmed. He actually called to get out of there and was ordered by his captain to stay.
That's true.
So he's in bed resting. She sits next to him and starts feeding him something that he believes is going to make him better. So I'm on Team Trip for this one.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
did nothing. Hashtag
Oh
Trip
yeah,
did
no.
nothing wrong.
Trip,
So.
Trip did absolutely nothing wrong. No, I don't feel like. Guess what? T'Pol can be as judgmental as she wants, but there is nothing in Trip's behavior here that is actually objectionable. I feel.
Dan, I want to hear from you because I do have a lot to say about this. But
Yeah,
we'll go.
isn't this essentially a first contact situation? And they've completely ignored all protocol. They send over just an individual untrained in diplomacy.
That's
Even just
Enterprise, baby.
Yeah,
well, sure, a lot of the book hadn't been written yet, but surely at the very least having some sort of
You could have had Archer go along.
Reed should have probably been there, and just somebody to back him up at the very least. So that would have avoided all this, though. Of course, that's that would have sidestepped the plot. I like the way that they wrote Trip here. He could have taken an angle of toxic masculinity and being disgusted and affronted, and instead they wrote him a little bit more sympathetic and going through some of the plates that are almost a trope for for a pregnancy in a show.
That's the kind of reason I think I really like Trip as a character, because he isn't like, he has those sort of Starfleet ideals, but still kind of being the common man. He isn't out there shouting like, yeah, we're Starfleet, we do it this way. He kind of just embodies it by being him. And this is kind of the best way of showing it. Trip's like one of my favorite Enterprise characters for that reason.
And credit to Connor Trainier, he's always had a little bit of a humorous angle on the show, but he was willing to play himself the fool in the episode, and just kind of have a few silly lines here and there, and be a little bit of a Karen in the engineering lift, and so
he was justified. He was justified in that lift. Like that, that engineer was like, "Why don't you put your hand there?" Like, it is a natural hand rest. Come on, you go on.
You need a label. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's bad design.
I defend him for that.
But I agree with Stars. I enjoyed the episode. It was good popcorn watching. The characters who were developed in the episode got a chance to advance a little bit. I think I also agree that the standout was Phlox. I loved his bedside manner. He was he embodied that competence. He knew immediately what was happening, and demonstrated his value, and really a big difference to some of the high strung antics of the Doctor and Voyager that we watched last week. So this was he was a real point of professionalism on their crew that actually made, yes, thank you, that actually made this Enterprise crew more than just kind of a joke trying to haphazardly find their way through things.
They would have been fucked without him.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but both Picardo and Billingsley were on the Orville, correct?
Yes, they
I believe
were.
so.
Yeah.
Did they interact? Because I haven't seen all the episodes. I don't know if they interact. Those two might be the two I want to see interact most in all of Trek. Those guys would bounce off each other like
there's
rubber
an interesting,
balls. That would be so much fun.
Just to go slightly off track a moment, there's an interesting thing going on in the Doctor Who world at the moment. They've released a series called Tales of the TARDIS, which is bringing back old companions to talk about their stories, and they're putting up as if they're actually coming together. I would love to see like a Tales from Trek, where you get just two characters, and they just hand wave and go, yeah, they're older now, who cares? And then just have them talk and interact in their characters' voices. Like, I would love to see that. Like Billingsley.
Like
are you telling me you didn't?
Yeah, Spock and Q.
Are you telling me you didn't get your money's worth out of very short treks?
Not well, yeah, no, but yeah,
no.
So I loved this. I think I've watched Enterprise through maybe like 6 times, which seems like a lot, but compared to other series like 40 times, it's not so much. And I think I've always liked this episode, and I've always had a good time until now. 2 things I want to talk about. A, I'm not Mr. Political Correctness. Anyone who's around me knows that. B, I've tended to be conservative for most of my life, and I think Star's going to test my journey through my sensibilities over time and trying to be more open and honest with situations and people that I can't identify with. This episode felt really gross to me, and I didn't like it. And in fact, I think I hated it. There's slut shaming, there's victim shaming, there's rape shaming. Literally, he stands on the bridge and everyone points and laughs at him at the end with the Klingons and everyone. It felt gross. And there's a point where Overtide and chat pointed out, aren't they essentially victim or slut shaming or whatever he said? And it's like, yeah. And you guys, and this is no judgment to anyone, like you said, it is played for laughs. You guys kept laughing, and I found that I couldn't laugh anymore.
Interesting.
And I just felt really bad about it. And if you switch the roles, a woman was raped, is about to lose her career, which she's very proud of, has to carry someone else's baby to term because she may not see the father again. It's like it has all the tent poles of really disgusting situations. And for that to be played up for laughs, I get it because I laughed for years when I watched through it. And I'm feeling grilled. I don't think I can laugh anymore. To me, it's one of those episodes that just aged terribly. And I like a lot of the sci-fi concepts in it, the conceits we talked about early on. I like the Klingons at the end. But just that being the meat of the episode was like a gut punch, and I did not enjoy it at all.
Yeah, I could see that. I like what you said about role reversal, and if it had been Hoshi in that situation, just a completely different episode.
Would it have been played for laughs if it was Hoshi?
Of course not. No, there's no way.
Well, if it was Brannon and Braga, yes, they probably would have tried to go on a comedic angle with it, but it would have fallen even more flat. It would have been Code of Honor levels of terror.
Well, no, because I'm thinking about it, and if you flip this episode and you make it about when you get the child from season 2 of TNG,
the child's close. Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying.
It's very close.
Yeah.
Well, but there's no rapist in that episode.
Well,
because the alien does the thing and then leaves, and you
also get it from the post point as well.
Also,
yeah.
Well, yeah, no one shames Troy in that episode. They're all supportive. There's zero jokes.
No,
you
but
know,
it's also a case of like
he's there for it.
When I think about that episode, all I can think of is that conversation they have where, like, even Worf brings up the idea of aborting it, and it's like, well, it's treated with a bit more respect than this one, if keeping in Otto's perspective in mind, because it is treated as more of a violation there, whereas here it is just treated as it's a funny thing that's happened to Trip. Yeah.
I think the writer, the writers being Braga and Brandon Braga and Berman.
Rick Berman.
Rick Berman. We're trying to kind of do the whole, Trip gets into a kerfuffle and this unexpected thing happens because of the lack of first contact protocols. And I think, you're right also. You absolutely are. Like, this is a role reversal done badly from the concept, but framed as sort of like a joking sort of like, imagine playing like the Ulian episode from TNG where Troy gets, one of the, I joke about it, but it is a horrific thing, like one of the many Troy mind rape episodes, but it's not a nice thing. But if you play it in a certain tone, if you change the soundtrack and you change the kind of overall gimmick, you can play it for laughs, and this kind of does go for that.
I want to see about Troy. We don't joke about the circumstances of any of those events. We joke about the fact that it's like the writers keep hitting that button for whatever reason into the movies, and it's like, why do you keep going back to this concept? That's what we're laughing at, the absurdity of that, not her individual situation.
Oh yeah, no, we would never have a go at her, because it's like, she's a character being put in an awful situation repeatedly. It's more of an exposition of like just how creatively bankrupt they were with what to do with their character, that was all they could think of to do.
And I think that is expanded on here, in that, like, this is their one note, but they played it sort of like, there is straddling the line here between playing this like almost disgustingly with our modern sensibilities and then sort of going like, a man gets pregnant, it's 2005, who would you have thought it? Wasn't that a funny turn of events? Like, I believe they played it more for that, but you are right, it doesn't come across, it can come across as terrible
to me. You know what I mean?
Sorry, say that again.
It feels like boomer humor to me, like how they always joke about, my wife is such a so-and-so. It's like that was the joke for 40 years, and now people of our generation are like, that's not so funny anymore. How about try having like a normal, healthy, stable marriage instead of always like picking at your spouse,
I think what sells it, I think what makes it redeemable is the fact that Trip Tucker is the focus point of the episode, not the fact that he got taken advantage of, but more the fact of how he reacts to it. And they give him these comic angles to sort of like, like with the lift, exposing the nipple, and there's the whole, they play more for Connor Trenier to be a bit of a sort of a fool rather than addressing the issue itself, because they don't really address the issue at all. He's pregnant, and then they remove it safely, and then it's like a kind of, they kind of skim over the whole like, she led me into a holodeck and we just had these crystals, and then she kind of apologizes.
But is it better that he's made to be the fool in all of this?
I want to say no, but I'm not trying to defend this in a kind of like,
I'm not trying to judge anyone either.
No.
Like I said, 20 years ago it made a lot more sense to most people, and like I said, I've laughed at myself. It's just that now with modern sensibilities. I just am repulsed.
So its position, and this is this the fifth episode of Enterprise? Fifth, sixth. So this gives to us very early on an idea of the stakes involved, right? Because we can all empathize with an unexpected pregnancy, and in the implications that has. It's a very grounded concept, and so to take space exploration and first contact and new species and put that in that lens, I think that was the real purpose of the episode, is to show that even the most innocuous interaction, being a good Samaritan and helping somebody on the roadside, can have really long-lasting personal and cultural implications. So, I think whether it was appropriate, well, certainly for the time, it seemed to stand out. I think that in the larger scope, this really did have a place. The episode kind of was needed to show some of the pitfalls are not as obvious as the Klingons, locking on phasers.
So, Otto, I'm curious. If there had been, obviously I completely understand why you find it gross, and I can completely empathize with that. If there had been an exchange between Arlen and Trip where she was like, "Hey, I want to do this thing with you because I really dig you. You seem like a cool dude." In my culture, between members of my species, is basically equivalent to sex. And then he was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." It's like, "I like you, I dig your vibe." It's not quite how we do it. And then they did it, and then the rest of the episode, kind of proceeded from there. And you treat it more as just a case of the one time you don't use protection, this happens. Would that kind of fix it? Yeah, a bit more like that.
He gets the alien STD sort of.
Yeah. Would you feel like that would fix it?
Fixed, no. It would have changed a lot, because the scene in sickbay where they first find out and T'Pol's berating him, he really had no idea what was happening. He was taken advantage of, and there's a big discussion about believing the accuser in rape cases, and it's like no one in that room believed him, even though from our perspective he didn't know what he was getting into. And the fact that no one believed him actually was kind of sad, because Archer, who's known him for 8 years and stuck up for him earlier in the episode saying he's the toughest man I know, suddenly he's sort of on his side, but he also
a bit,
and so that makes it feel even worse. I think Trip is the only one that comes out of this episode looking better.
I feel like Phlox is alright, actually, because I feel like
you're right. Phlox is fine, but I mean, Trip, for what he's going through, could have gone any number of dark paths, and instead he's like, "All right, I'm going to try to be like the best dad I can," and so good on him. But it would have helped things, but it's mostly like the laughing and shaving stuff that goes on for like a 20-minute stretch that I've take issue with, and I did not expect that going into this watch along. I thought it would be like a haha, let's all laugh at the pregnant Trip.
Coming into this review, I thought that's what we're going for, but okay. Yeah. we're all learning something. Let me ask you this: problematic subject matter aside, or even include it as well. What other Star Trek cast and who would get pregnant in this episode would you see happening, like say for TNG or Voyager? Like, do you feel like, I'm kind of thinking, what if Riker got pregnant, because he's probably the exact kind of person that would go into that situation.
Actually, sorry if I can jump in. It's funny you say that, because I'm reading through the behind the scenes stuff. And it says Brandon Braga believed that what was especially refreshing was the way in which the character Trip is very eager to go on the ship, but soon becomes desperate to leave because of how strange he finds it. Quote, "That's the kind of stuff you would never see a Riker do because they're just too seasoned," remarked Braga. And Connor Trinneer brought more to Trip than we could have imagined.
8 years of Starfleet and he's not seasoned? I don't know.
Well, it's also a case of it's Starfleet, but like they've not gone out in space. Yeah, this is a completely different context. So I'm gonna say, if obviously, like, queuing up the script so there's less key consent issues, I would want Discovery to do it, and I would want Saru to be the one who got pregnant.
Ooh, that would be fun. That would be interesting.
I'd be interested to see what someone like Saru would do in this situation, because he can be very tightly wound.
They kind of do it a little bit with the like if you cross the Vihari with the Sakal situation, you kind of got a hybrid there already. But yeah, obviously without the problematic consent issues. About you, Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe seeing Barkley in this situation because we did get he had some repercussions for his use of the holodeck and I think I'd like to see what would happen if that went further and really give him a chance to develop his own character and see what direction he'd take it.
Also, if you're able to stomach it, could you manage to see another?
I'm still ruminating. I actually really like that Saru shout. I'm trying to think of who would be the most changed coming out of that experience, and I think I do circle back around to Riker because he is a womanizer in a lot of episodes, in a lot of ways, and I think maybe him experiencing that would probably be the most profoundly changed out of all the main cast that might have to go through that. And I did say, like I said, when Trip calls talking to Archer and he's like watching water polo or whatever, I could definitely see Picard in that scenario, just like drinking his tea and like not giving a shit about what's going on over there. So
gotta feed my dog. Call me back later, Trip.
Yeah, but I really like that Saru shout because I want to see what Doug Jones does with that. That would be pretty cool.
Saru is such an interesting character because he so often has to be in control. He's like kind of defined by his growing up into a captaincy, and this is something that would be a very, very different plot for him to get pushed into. That open up his character in an interesting way.
You'd be interested to know that the Star Trek magazine's Ultimate Guide thought this was the worst episode in season 1, and I kind of disagree in a way because
I hard disagree.
Yeah, I feel like Strangely Worlds was a little bit worse, but not the series, the episode. Did you know?
I'm gonna look through what season 1's got in there.
Did you know? Season 1 got? There was a deleted scene. There was a deleted scene in this episode. I'll read it out from Memory Alpha because there was one point in this episode where I can see why they cut it, and it's a T'Pol quote. But it said the scene mostly takes place at the console of the Enterprise's Situation Room and shows Tucker, who's not feeling very well, T'Pol and Reed discussing whether or not they are actually tracking the alien stealth vessel. Tucker attempts to dismiss this only for T'Pol to recommend a meal, revealing she has been told that Rigelian sausage, which has recently been prepared by the ship's chef, is notably succulent. And as the scene goes on, and Trip ends up not feeling very well and vomiting off screen.
Okay, I think someone was having a little bit too much going on there.
That's a Berman Braga thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, this is absolutely not the worst episode of season 1. Dear Doctor and Fortunate Son are both awful.
There we go. Namer says, I think it's fine for it to go there because of the absurdity and possibility of the situation, so I think the role-reversing argument is a false equivalency. Yeah, some of the characters could have been more understanding and supportive, but I don't think the viewer having a chuckle is problematic. I suppose from the viewer's perspective, yeah, you're right, having a laugh at it is not, but yeah, there are issues there.
I feel like the fact that it's, like I mentioned, I do think that the situation is defanged by the nature of the fact that they are so early in their career. It's tampered by the fact that there is no invasive physical contact, and he doesn't seem. He goes through some hormonal changes, but he's not in absolute pain. He's not notably discomforted. It's mostly like hormonal changes, and I feel like if that had happened, then it'd be way easier for me to say, yeah, no, this is a appalling piece of shit that should never be or aired again. But it is one of those interesting things where it's like, depending on how you view it, and depending on your willingness to suspend, your moral viewpoint on it, this is an episode that drastically changes how you see it, depending on how you watch it. That is something I hadn't considered in a while.
I want to bring up so when we talked about the award categories for the award show, we recorded that and we'll put it up. I think you want to do it after the award show, so maybe early next year. One of the categories we initially had in there is episodes that aged the worst. And as we're going through them and talking about the problematic issues, we're like, you know what? These actually make us feel really gross, and we don't want to include these in something that should be a celebration of Trek. So we decided to cut that. One of the episodes we talked about there in there is Retrospect, where 7 of 9 is basically knocked out. They extract nanoprobes against her will, and then she accuses this guy of doing that. Chase him he basically commits suicide, and then they realize, oh no, that didn't actually happen. She was imagining it. That episode is like, Yeah, it's not a one-for-one comparison because, like you said, there's no violent whatever involved.
Yeah.
But he was basically taken advantage of, and while Seven has everyone behind her back chasing the aggressor, in this instance, Trip is sort of the focus of everyone's derision, and so it's like it's a 180 basically. And I guess it's not a one-to-one comparison, but there is another episode where someone gets taken advantage of. How does the cast handle it?
Yeah.
In the interest of moving along, shall we do best moments and worst moments? Sorry to make this in-depth discussion too linear, but go on.
I want to talk a little bit about because the part I do love is the intro with the aliens and how different they are. You're eating stuff off the walls. You have the holodeck. You have the 4-hour decon stuff. They threw a lot of really cool sci-fi concepts in there that Enterprise is experiencing for the first time, and I loved it.
That was cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really valid thing to...
I feel like the eating the stuff off the wall felt a little bit too Galaxy Quest as opposed to like Star Trek, but yeah, you're right. The decompression stuff was very cool, getting adjusted to the air and them saying, no, you need to rest. Like, you know, he's just like, no, I can soldier through it, and him having his Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas moment where he's seeing bats and eels everywhere. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I do appreciate that they went to the effort of making them properly alien, because, like, you know, Star Trek has perpetually had this issue of what's our new alien of the week? Oh, it's someone who looks human with a slightly different rubber forehead. Yeah, and them going to the effort of no, this is someone with a slightly more intensive, you know, makeup. It helps that you only see like 2 or 3 of them on stream at any one time. And then we're just going to go all in on what's like the weirdest kind of working situation for a spacecraft and a culture that we can get away with, that you go, yeah, that would just about make sense for a spacefaring civilization to do. Like you said, the stuff growing on the walls, that's a little bit Galaxy Quest, but at the same time, it's like, so long as it's like biologically safe and it's not going to get in like the machinery or whatever, if I'm feeling hungry, it's like, you know, it's a different cultural norm, and it is kind of included as almost as just like a punchline of like a, oh, look how weird they are. But the fact that it's done so casually and there's not a ton of like, you know, emphasis put on it, and it's not like a string of jokes about it, I feel like that kind of helps make it more of a, this is making them genuinely alien rather than the punchline.
It kind of like that when Trip first sort of walks out into their sort of like room and he's all tripping out. That kind of room feels to me like when you walk into the Science Museum or like some sort of exhibition for the first time. Like, and here's our weird ice cubes. Here's our stuff growing on the wall, and like here's a little info plaque to tell you exactly who made it and what it's all about. Kind of felt a little museum-esque. Like, look how weird they are. They've got weird flappy heads. Like it just yeah. But that might have been the hallucinations doing that. All right.
I was going to bring up what Overtired just did in chat. The mechanical creeper dolly, like they're still using that in the 23rd century to roll underneath the engine and get a good look. That was funny.
Okay, wheels never go out of fashion. All right.
Reliable.
Best and worst moments. Dan, hit us.
I actually kind of respected it. I guess they did a re-render of the D7, so it was neat. They did some neat lighting effects when they lighted their farts on fire. But I think my favorite moment was just T'Pol breaking bread with the crew. You know, it was nice. You know, they set her up as an observer, and she's really much the outsider. And this is probably the earliest example of her actually trying to make an effort to connect with them in a way that's very human. You know, so I think that was a highlight. Low light was the Klingon commander handing over what looked to be a USB key fob with his home planet on it, just to go and point out his home.
I have an enthusiasm in topographical information.
Here we go. Here's my neat little thing. Just plug this in. Don't worry, it'll work, even though everything of yours is organic. But
USB 3? No, it's
USB-C. Universal for a reason.
Go on, Otto.
I can see my house from here.
He said that. I can't believe you actually said that. That's brilliant.
That was so funny. That and the other part I liked is the pure, rugged, brutal Klingon efficiency, where they're like, there's a ship there, they fire 3 photons, they lock on inside of like 2 seconds. It's like, yeah, finally some fucking professionals showing up here to handle things. So that was great. The Klingons were like a breath of fresh air outside of them all pointing and laughing.
It's because the captain was such a nerd, because he's interested in all this geographical data. So like he's got that ship locked down tight.
Yeah. And then the worst, it's all the derision. It's the X shaming, the blank shaming that they did at every turn. So,
go on, Stars.
Best moments, I would say, Phlox. Like, it's almost cheating because you can say that about pretty much any Enterprise episode. Phlox is almost always going to be the bright spot because he's just so well performed and there's just such a warmth to him. Like, it's hard to think of an episode where I hate Phlox. Like, it's just not something that happens very often. And like we were talking about in terms of like Archer and T'Pol being a bit derisory and not being there for Trip in a way that we want. Phlox was no, that would be a perfectly reasonable way for her to transfer. Like, I'm not gonna I can't obviously state for certain, but these these cubes or whatever could easily have done it, and he just doesn't throw any judgment at all. He's like, I've seen weirder. I'm just here to be the best care provider I can be and open your mind to new possibilities. And if you need to be a mother, then guess what? I will give you all the pamphlets you need. My other best moment would just be I appreciate Trip and Connor Trinneer. Like, there's just so much natural charm to him, and I feel like I don't I know it might be in your behind the scenes trivia, but I feel like this is the episode where they realized, oh wait, we can basically throw anything we want at him, and he'll do it. He'll do it, and he'll do it well. And I feel like without this episode, even with the accompanying grossiness, like without this chance for Connor Trinneer to basically prove you can throw any situation and he'll be able to handle it and pull it off, you wouldn't get amazing episodes like Similitude. You wouldn't get really great episodes like Terra Firma. You wouldn't get like almost any of these really strong Trip focused episodes. And I feel like Trip kind of becomes the heart of Enterprise in a way, and it's kind of tracks all the way back to here, I feel.
Not Mayweather?
No.
No. Okay.
In fact, just for that, worst moment, Mayweather. The fact that I had to see him and I had to hear his voice.
Yeah.
How dare he? He didn't do anything. Exactly.
I want to throw in one little best of, and if I've stolen yours, you can boot me from the call. It's when he's Archer's very clearly losing this battle of diplomacy with the Klingon captain.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
And T'Pol walks down and starts saving his bacon. She's saying, "Oh, he's great in this and that," and you can just see the body language, Scott Bakula, the change. She stands up straight. He's like, "Yeah, that's right. I am the captain. I did do all those things." He's like, "I just forgot to tell you, but I really am like a Klingon brother."
I love at the end when he questioned on her. She was like, "No, it's fine. Don't worry about it." And then just drinks a drink and walks away. I'm going to start my worst moment. My worst moment, I agree with the auto. Like, I agree, like, the worst moment is how they set up her as just like, oh, I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't know this could happen. Like, yeah, but you had a kind of inkling. Like, there was a little bit of, like, she basically walks in and goes, like, hey, we could do this with this guy without any kind of thought to any kind of interspecies standards. Like, she's got someone to report to, and imagine they have a sense of morals and this kind of stuff. So she was very much, like, not exactly being subtle with her intentions. My best moment, and I apologize for this because I appreciate that comes under your slut-shaming area, but I feel like T'Pol is absolutely someone that would slut-shame. But it was her attitude to Trip when she was just like, you were there for 3 days, and like the comments like she was giving was, it made me laugh. I can't apologize, but like it made me laugh because I feel like that is exactly how T'Pol, and considering T'Pol
Vulcans are extremely judgmental, to be fair, especially when it comes to sex.
And that she's very bitchy, and kind of like that was kind of my high point that made me laugh. Just how, because we haven't seen that version of T'Pol yet, and considering Vulcans are usually quite reserved, she is straight in there with the drama, kind of adding a little bit of depth to T'Pol's character as someone just like, I'm not usually judgmental unless it's to humans, or especially Trip Tucker, because I already can't stand the man. So yeah, I will not defend that because I appreciate where you're coming from, but I will say, yeah, that might be appropriate of T'Pol's character, and I've dug myself a very large hole and I won't get out of it anytime soon. Any other comments before we go to ratings? Nope. Okay. Stars, what is our rating criteria for this one, which I'm probably going to some kind of hell for?
You're not going to hell for this one. Gentlemen, how many obviously dangerous handrails on engineering out of 10 would you like to give this episode?
Amazing. Dan, obvious handrails.
Yeah.
Hold on, I've got a quick question. Why does the handrail need to close on both sides? Can't it just be like one that lifts up? No.
Why does it require a manual input anyway? Why isn't it an automatic thing of, oh, I've hit the thing? Like,
they've worked in grocery stores for 20 years, but we can't get one on the NX-01.
No, clearly not.
Sorry,
wasn't in the budget.
Well, I'll start. I think I can give this one 5 handrails. Sorry, I don't remember the whole the whole description.
Disqualified.
Yeah. Certainly the discussion here has given me a different perspective, and I may have rated it higher, but now I have some questions of my own. I think though ultimately this episode did serve a very specific purpose, and whether or not you can enjoy the 43 minutes of television, at least it did advance something, which is more than we could say for a lot of the real filler episodes that we're probably going to see for Enterprise in the first season. So yeah, 5.
Auto.
I love to tell the story of when Stars hung at my bungalow for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and we sat on the couch watching. We looked up like the worst Trek we could think of, mostly season 1 TNG and that ilk, and just laughed our butts off. And I would rather watch something like that any day, where it's like hilariously awful, than something that makes me feel kind of gross inside. So I walked into this expecting to be like, oh, it's an 8. I remember this episode. I love this episode. And I just can't shake that feeling. So I'm going to give it a 3.0. And those 7 points pulled out are because of all that stuff. But I liked almost everything else about it. I like the concepts. I like the Klingons. It's just that big gaping hole in the middle. I don't like feeling bad when I watch Star Trek. It doesn't happen very often. So
that's valid.
3.0, obviously dangerous handrails and engineering out of 10.
Yeah, thank you. I came into this kind of expecting to give it like an 8.5 out of 10. And I feel like I do have to kind of knock it for the points that Auto brought up, which, yeah, it is definitely there. It's one of those things where, yeah, this episode completely changes depending on just like a few bits of context and just how you decide to view it. And it's not a case of like, I don't think there's anything malicious in that. It's like a case of you have to, people grow all the time and their viewpoints on things change, and how you view something over time changes. So I'm not going to like say that you're knocking this episode on purpose. I know you love Enterprise, so it's a case of like, I'm not going to knock you for that. And I think your points have knocked it down a bit for me as well. But I still think that all the exploration of how weird space travel can be, Trip's character building, Phlox's parts, some of the humor does still land for me. I'd probably have to give this a 7. Obviously, dangerous handrails out of 10. I kind of wish that you could also feel that way, but I understand why you don't.
No, agreed. I'm much the same as yourself. Yeah, I think when I spoke to you about this before Stars and Auto, we're like, unexpected, hell yeah, let's get in there. This is a great Enterprise episode we're enthusiastic about, and even like coming into the review, and then when you said that, I was a bit like, you're not wrong. Like I'm absolutely I absolutely agree with it. I think the main core of that idea is definitely bringing it down. But we have the Klingons, we have Trip going into the decon chamber, not decon chamber, that's something else. The atmospheric chamber, decompression chamber for the first time. We have Phlox's reactions. There's a lot about this episode for the characters that bring it so much further up. And the idea that First Contact can be a bit messy is also a good premise. One of the good premises of Enterprise that it launched under was good. Yeah, you're right. The non-consensual stuff is absolutely disgusting. Like, this is not a great episode to play for laughs, which it does. And
I don't think anyone here has to couch their rating in apologies or anything, because it's we all understand how it's working. Yeah. The circumstances here. So
but this is why we do this.
If someone gave this a 10 and they thought it was hilarious, I'd be like, I at one point I would agree. It's like, hey, more power to you. I'm glad you enjoy this episode of Star Trek. I wouldn't.
But you can't help feeling the way you feel.
How many times have we gone into a Trek track and been like, this kind of a mediocre episode, and by the end we talk about all the great points. You're like, you know what, I friggin' love this episode. So it's okay if it happens in reverse sometimes.
There's a collaborative process here. I think the fact that we can all meet and share about this is really adds value, and it's okay if this is the result, that we have more questions than we answered during the process.
I think you're absolutely right, Dan. Like we're coming into it together. We're talking amongst it together, and the idea of great, of discussion is to agree on points. And I think I'll go for a 6. I'm going to go for a decimal. I'll go for a 6.5. I enjoyed a lot about this episode.
Oh wow, really pushing the boat out.
Sorry, a 6.538.
The holographic boat.
Yeah, it's not real and it'll get you pregnant. Okay.
We didn't count the boat. The boat.
Yeah.
You sure you don't want to rate it a 6.66? Just, to twist the knife a little more.
Okay. No, I'll wait for the Ardra episode for that one. That'll be a 6.66. Or the Lucian episode from Taz. But yeah, no, I agree. Like, coming into this, I would have rated it higher, but given those points, yeah, you're absolutely right. There is problematic stuff, the same kind of problematic stuff that in Code of Honor isn't played as a joke, in The Child isn't played as a joke. So,
by the way, you live viewers are going to love the next episode
really
I picked, because it is. I love it, but I might actually hate it after watching it. It's like the same episode from a different.
So if you're watching the stream, stick about. We're going to be watching another episode, which I will tell you about in a moment. And I'm not telling our guests here. I'm not telling Stars and Dan what we're watching. Auto knows because he's the one that suggested it. But for everyone else, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with the next episode, which I don't know what it'll be because we're doing this slightly out of order. But come back in 2 weeks and we will be there with the next Star Trek Trek. But live long and prosper and ta-ra!